Hey guys, 𝐻𝖵𝖙𝖆 here, back again with another video, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to install Arch Linux for pen testing. So the reason I'm making this video is because a lot of you actually pointed out that I cover, various pen testing distributions like Kali and ParrotOS. I've used them in my videos, and many of you have been asking me to use BlackArch. So I made several videos showing you how to install BlackArch, and many of you have actually told me to install Arch from scratch and how to use the BlackArch repos so that you can set up and install the tools. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install Arch Linux from scratch on VirtualBox. That's something to take into consideration because if you're installing it on a UEFI system, then there are a few changes with the installation process. I'm going to be dealing with BIOS, so just keeping things very, very standardized. As for the desktop environment that I've settled for, I'm going to be using XFCE4, which is my preferred desktop environment. You can use KDE or a tiling window manager if you actually want to do that. I'll probably make independent videos covering how to do that, but it's after you've installed Arch or at least the base, it's very, very easy to get your system up and running and customize the way you want it. I'm going to be following the Arch Wiki installation guide just so that you guys have a roadmap in case you have any issues. You can follow along with the Arch Wiki. Again, we'll also be using the BlackArch repos. So all the links to these web pages and websites will be in the description section. The first thing you want to do is you want to download the Arch ISO. So you can do that by going to archlinux.org/download. And you can see the magnet and torrent links right over here. So it's about 630 megabytes, and this will pretty much be the last time you ever download Arch Linux or the ISO again. All right, so let's get started by opening up VirtualBox here, and we're just going to create a new machine. So I'll just open this up, a new machine here, and we'll just call this Arch Linux. And the machine folder, I'm just going to specify within one of my drives here under VMs. So VMs and Arch Linux, and I'm just going to hit OK. And again, you can specify whatever directory you want. And you can see by default with VirtualBox, the moment I type in virtual or I type in Arch Linux, it's able to detect from the input that the version and the type is going to be Linux and Arch Linux respectively. So I'm going to hit next. I'm going to specify about 2 gigs of RAM here. So 2048 or 2048 MB. I'm just going to hit next, create a virtual hard disk now. I'm just going to leave it as a VDI. You can also change that if you want to. I'm going to leave it at dynamically allocated, and I'm going to change the size to 15 gig. So if you actually are going to use this VM for pen testing, you might want to increase the size, but I'm going to be using this for demonstration purposes. So yeah, again, I'll just leave it at 15. And plus we're not installing anything major here. That's the beauty of Arch. So I'm just going to hit create, and I'm going to go into settings, and we're going to take a look at the system settings. For the processor, I'll set mine to 4 CPUs, and for acceleration, I'll leave that as it is. For display, yeah, we can enable 3D acceleration, and I'll specify the maximum amount of video memory there. For the storage, we want to go into the controller IDE and specify the Arch Linux ISO. You can specify the location. I already have mine there because I was just using it. As for the network, we'll switch into the bridged adapter here. Make sure you specify your appropriate adapter. And for the USB, make sure you're currently using USB 1.1. That's just a small configuration option if you do have an error with that. And with that set, we can actually start the Arch VM right now. So I'm just going to minimize VirtualBox as a whole. And what I'm going to do is let me just see if I can actually scale this virtual screen here to about 125, or let me just see if I can rescale it a bit more so you guys can actually see what's going on here, just right over here. All right, so I've started up. I'm just going to boot Arch Linux here, and let me just change this one more time. Apologies for this. I just want to make sure everything is scaled correctly so that you guys can actually see the commands I'm going to be running. So we'll just wait for this to start up, and it should prompt us into Arch. There we are. So we are now working within the Arch ISO, and we can begin the installation process. All right, so I'm just going to be moving back and forth here, but in fact, I think what I'll do is I'll just zoom out and I'll edit this in post-processing so that you guys can actually see the commands I'm typing. So let's start off with the first step within the installation process through the Arch Wiki. So you can go ahead and verify the signature of the ISO you've downloaded. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just start by checking whether we have an internet connection. So ping google.com, and yes, we do have a connection. And again, you can display your IP address information. You can see right over here, I have an IP of 192.168.1.115, so we're good to go there. So that's the first thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do is update the system clock right over here. Let me just zoom this in so you guys have a better picture of what I'm actually selecting. So we want to set the time, date control, and we'll set this entity, and we're going to say true and hit enter. Once that is done, we can actually check the time and date status here. So we're just going to say status, and that looks fine, even though my time zone isn't UTC. We'll be setting that shortly, but that's very important to set up your system clock to ensure that you don't have any issues when connecting to servers and everything is synchronized. All right, so it tells us we now need to move on to partitioning. So you can either use fdisk or cfdisk if you want. They actually are using fdisk here. So what we'll do first is we'll just list the disks that we have here with fdisk. So I'll just hit fdisk L. You can see we have one disk, which is the VBox hard disk, which is 15 gigs right over here, and that has the name or the ID dev SDA, so storage device A, and the other one is a loop, so we don't want to work with that. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to be using cfdisk. So I'm just going to say cfdisk. I specify the name or the ID here, so SDA, and I'm going to hit enter. Now for the label type, if you are going to be using or installing UEFI, then you want to stick with GPT. Since I'm using BIOS, I'm going to go with DOS. Now I'm not creating any swap partition, so you can see right over here they give you the example layouts that you can work with. So BIOS with MBR, you have your mount, you have your that's actually where you'll be installing your main root file system, and you have your swap right over here, so you can create it very easily. So again, if I wanted to create these partitions, what I would say is I would say new, let's say we'll say about 2 gigabytes right over here, and that is a primary, and we'll change the type here. We want to look for Linux swap, that is 82 on the menu, and we can then hit right, and then that will be the swap partition. So I can hit right over here, and I'm going to hit yes, and then we can say we can go down and we can hit new and 13 gig, so primary, and then we want to make this bootable, and that's where we'll install our system. Now if you're working with UEFI, you can see you'd need the actual root file system, the root partition, sorry. You need a swap partition if you wanted one, and you'd have your boot partition, which is where you install your EFI. This is your EFI system partition. So that's if you want to go about doing it that way. Now I personally do not want any swap partition, so I'm just going to delete this, and I'm going to hit new, 15 gig maximum primary, and I'm just going to specify that it should be bootable here, and I'm then going to write the changes. So I'm going to hit yes, and there we are, and I can finally quit. All right, so after you have actually created your partition here, we need to format the partition, and we can do that using the make file system command. But before we do that, let me just display the disks for you. So if I say fdisk L, you can see it now tells us we have dev SDA1 here, and that is of type Linux, and since we haven't actually formatted as XD4, it'll not display that. So that's the first thing we want to do, is we want to say make file system .xt4, and then we specify, so we're going to say dev SDA1, right, because that's the new partition we created. I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to create the partition for us. So if I just display fdisk L right now, you can see that we've created the partition, and it's xt4. All right, so now we have created our partition. The next thing we need to do is we need to mount the file systems, which is right over here, and we're mounting it on the mount in the mount directory. So we're just going to do that right now. So mount, dev SDA1, and this is under mount, and I'm going to hit enter. All right, now that we've mounted it, now we can begin installing our base system. Now there are a few things that have changed, I think, over the last few months with Arch during the installation process. Now typically you'd use packstrap and you'd install the base devel packages, Linux for the Linux kernel, and the Linux firmware for drivers. But now you need to install a few more packages that have been removed from the base and the base devel packages. So again, we'll say packstrap I to install under mount, and then we'll say let's start off with we'll start off with the base packages and base developer packages. So base devel. We then specify the Linux LTS kernel. I love using the LTS kernel. You can use the latest version if you want to, and then you can install and configure the LTS kernel after you've set up your system. But I don't recommend that because you'll have to reconfigure grub again. So again, we'll say Linux firmware. That's for your drivers. We also have to install DHCP, so DHCP CD, that has been removed. Man, Vim, Nano, what else? Let's see what else we're missing here. So we've installed base devel, Linux LTS. Am I missing anything? Linux firmware, Man, Vim, Nano. I think that's it. So I'm just gonna let that synchronize the package databases and begin the download and installation process. Now, I know I haven't covered the mirror selection process, but it typically selects the mirror that's closest to you. If you want me to continue making videos on Arch and how to install it, how to get it configured, do let me know. So there you are. We want to just hit install all, and we're going to specify the first option here from the first option right over here, and we're going to say yes to begin the download and installation process. So I'll let this download and install, and I'll get back to you when this is done. All right, so the installation process is winding up, as you can see right over here. One thing I want to actually cover is when dealing with your graphics cards, and of course your processors, you can essentially install the microcode as specified right over here. I think they actually cover it in regards to Intel. So when dealing with the firmware, the Linux firmware package, this will essentially include the AMD microcode. I'm pretty sure of it, but for the Linux one, I think I'll have to actually make a video covering that. But again, this is primarily focused on VirtualBox, and I'll be showing you for the graphics drivers how to install the VirtualBox guest utilities. All right, so now that it's installed the base system and all the other packages that we specified, we now need to generate the fstab file, and we'll actually define it by UUID instead of labels, because that's just much better. So we'll say gen fstab, and then we say UUID, that is denoted by a capital U, and of course this is in the MNT folder or the MNT directory, and we're going to output this into MNT etc fstab, and we just want to verify the syntax. That's very important, and we hit enter, and we can also just display the contents of this file now. Sorry, that is on MNT etc and fstab, and we hit enter, and you can see we have the UUID for the particular drive or partition, and we have the information regarding the actual format, so ext4, and you have the name there, so dev sda1. So that's working fine. That we don't need to do anything much there. So now we need to change root into the new system, and we do this using the arch change root command. So arch or chroot, whatever you want to call it. And we want to access, this is all within the mounted folder, and we just hit enter, and we're now in our system, and this is where we would start configuring our system, in regards to installing any other packages you want, creating users, installing our desktop environment. So the first thing we want to do is, again, we're following the Arch wiki, is we want to set the time zone. So lnsf, we then say user share, that is zone info, and then you specify your region. So for example, I'll say Europe, and then I say London. That's just a simple example, and this is saved in etc local time, like so, and I hit enter, and then we need to run the hardware clock to generate the actual time. So that activates the hardware clock. So hardware clock sys, so that is sys tohc, and sorry, that is like so, and we hit enter, and that should have set up our time zone and set up the hardware clock. The next thing is your localization. So I installed Vim. If you didn't install Vim, you can use Nano, but we need to edit the etc locale.gen file, and we want to search for the language. So within this file, you want to uncomment the language or the locale or your locale. We're looking for English US, so I'm just going to search for it, English_US, and I'm just going to use the let me look for it. So there it is. So I'm just gonna uncomment it here. So English US UTF-8, and then I'm gonna save this file. And then to actually generate your locale, we're gonna say locale gen, right? So locale gen, that's gonna generate our locales. I'm using English US UTF-8. After I've generated our locales, we now need to configure our network, and the first thing we need to do is create our host name. This is very important. So vim etc host name. Let's open this up. Yeah, vim etc host name, and we're gonna call this Arch Linux, or we can just let's just call it Arch Linux. And I'm gonna save that. Now we need to edit our host file, which I believe you have to do manually now. So vim etc hosts, and again, you can use Nano if you want to. That really doesn't change. And we're just going to use the standard configuration here. So 127.0.0.1, and that is going to be, localhost, and we have one here, which is essentially just localhost again. And then we have 127.0.1.1, and that is going to be Arch Linux, your host name, .local domain. So make sure to change it appropriately, and then this is and then we specify the host name again, so Arch Linux one more time, and then we can save this. The next thing we want to do in regards to our network, we need to install iputils, which I forgot to do. So sudo pacman s. Well, I don't need sudo because in the root user we say iputils and net control, and we hit enter. And I'm going to use systemd resolve. Of course, we're using systemd. There we are. So that's installed. We need to enable the DHCP CD service. So system control enable DHCP CD. That's very important, and it's going to create the symlink for us. So that's all you need to do in regards to your network management. You can also install Network Manager if you want. I personally just use DHCP CD, but you can do that if you want as well. So again, that would typically entail pacman s network manager, and we hit yes, and you would enable it on startup, which is what many people usually recommend. So we can just install it in case you guys wanted to do this. By the way, as you would have guessed, I just saw another package there called the WPA supplicant. I haven't covered how to install, how to perform the installation if you're using Wi-Fi. So I'll actually have to make a separate video covering that. But this is primarily focused on VirtualBox, so there isn't any particular need for that. So we'll just let this install. The next thing we have to do is we need to set the root password. We then need to install the grub bootloader, which is again very, very important. So we'll just wait for this to complete. I'll then reboot and then create the user Alexis so that we can start installing our audio drivers and desktop manager as well as our display manager. So hopefully this completes soon. There we are. The installation process has begun, and we are good. All right, excellent. So now we need to set our root password. So password, I'm just going to set my root password here, and there we are. The password has been updated successfully. We now need to install our bootloader. I'm going to be using grub, so I'm just going to say pacman s grub. I'm just going to hit yes. There we are, and I'm going to just click on bootloader here. And again, it specifies if you have an Intel or AMD CPU, enable the microcode updates in addition. Now, again, if you're running this in VirtualBox, I don't have to cover that yet, but if I just click on grub here and we click on installation, this is specified to the actual name of the disk here. So to install grub, we say grub install dev SDA, not dev SDA1. So hit enter. So it's going to auto detect the platform you're installing it for, or you can specify the target platform right over here. And then after we have installed it, we then need to create the grub configuration file or the bootloader configuration. And that's specified right over here after we installed grub. You can see generate your bootloader configuration with grub mkconfig, and it is output into the boot directory under grub, and it's called grub.cfg. Now, in the event you're going to install another kernel, whether that be LTS or the latest kernel, you need to regenerate that grub configuration file so that every time you boot up, it uses the new kernel. All right, so the installation is complete. So now let's generate the grub configuration file or your bootloader configuration file. So grub, sorry, let me just get in my virtual machine. So grub mkconfig, and we're going to output this into boot, grub, and we're going to call it grub.cfg. We're going to hit enter. That's going to begin the installation process. All right, so you can see that if you've done everything correct so far and you installed your Linux kernel, you'll actually see it right over there. So VM Linux LTS, Linux LTS. So that's a good sign. That means everything is working okay so far. So after installing the bootloader, we can now reboot. So the first thing we want to do is we want to exit and we want to unmount. It's always good to unmount. So umount r mnt, and we hit that, and we can now reboot. Sorry, not exit. We want to reboot. We also need to eject the Arch ISO. But before I do that, I think I'll just specify the boot options. So I'm just going to hit reboot, and I'm going to hit F12 so that I can specify the hard drive. So I'm just going to specify the first option there. There we are. We can see that grub is installed correctly. We'll specify Arch Linux there. So it's going to start Arch Linux for us. And we now want to create our user account. So we don't work with the root account. So I'm just going to say root, we'll log in, and we specified the password in the previous step. All right, so the first thing we want to do is if I try and ping Google, so this is one of the disadvantages of not using your network manager. So I need to actually work with the resolve.conf file here. I need to specify the name server. I think that's what's causing the issue. Name server 192.168.1.1. I've specified my default gateway. You can specify any other name server you want. I'll save this and I'll say system control. So system control restart dhcp-cd, hit enter. If I let me just see if I can see my IP address. Yeah, so let me try and ping google.com now. All right, so there we go. So internet is back, and we can begin working on the next step. So what we can do is we can take a look at the post installation recommendations here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create our standard user account. So I'll say user add m for their home directory, and we'll add them to the wheel group. The wheel group is like the sudo group on Ubuntu. It allows you to specify administrator privileges. So I'm going to specify the group name, that is wheel. The shell is going to be bin bash, sorry. And then we specify the user as Alexis. I'm going to hit enter. Again, you can customize that the way you want. I'll then specify the password for the user Alexis, and there we are. We've set the password. We now need to modify the vsudo file because we need to I believe we need to specify or uncomment the wheel group so that we have those permissions set. So let's say vsudo no editor found, or the editor path is vi, not vim. That's weird. Sorry. Let me just try and display the echo. Let me just try and echo the editor variable. All right, so the editor isn't set, so we'll have to use we'll have to set the editor manually. So I'll set the editor is going to be equal to vim. You can set yours to nano or whatever editor you installed, and we'll say vsudo and hit enter. And we want to go all the way down to the group specification. So uncomment to allow members of the group wheel to execute any command. So that's what we want to do. We want to uncomment this. So that means that the user Alexis now has administrative privileges. So we're just going to write and quit there. And we are good now. All right. What we want to do now is install the VirtualBox guest utilities before we start working with our display manager and our desktop environment. So we're almost there. If we take a look at the general recommendations, and you want to go under your graphical user interfaces, you can use display servers like 𝐻𝑗. In my case, we'll start off with display drivers. That's why I'm going to show you how to install the VirtualBox guest utilities. Then for the desktop environments, we're going to be using XFCE. Now XFCE and LightDM as our display manager. So if we open up the display manager page here, we're looking for LightDM right over here. LightDM is pretty simple to install. It is under the LightDM package. We also want to install the LightDM GTK greeter. So before we do that, so we say sudo pacman, or let's actually switch into the user Alexis here. And so we say sudo pacman s, and we're going to specify VirtualBox guest utils. Hit enter. I'm going to enter my password so you can see this account has the appropriate permissions. I'm just going to hit yes to download. So it's going to start downloading and installing the VirtualBox guest utilities. This shouldn't take time at all. We'll let that complete, and then we can begin installing LightDM. We also have to install our audio drivers if you do want any audio drivers. Let's take a step back here. Multimedia, we want to check out sound, so we'll install the 𝐴LSA package. Let's open that up, 𝐴LSA package, and the 𝐴LSA package, 𝐴LSA. So this is Pulse Audio 𝐴LSA utilities. Let's just take a look at it. We need to install, 𝐴LSA and 𝐴LSA. Okay, 𝐴LSA, Pulse Audio and Pulse Audio 𝐴LSA. All right, so let's do that right now. So we'll say sudo pacman s Pulse Audio. You don't really need to do this if you're running this on VirtualBox. Pulse Audio 𝐴LSA. Hit enter. Just gonna let this download and install. This shouldn't take time. Let's talk about LightDM. So we want to install LightDM, the LightDM greeter, GTK greeter. And then we have to enable the LightDM service. So we do that using systemd. So that's right over here, lightdm.service. And then XFCE installation should be simple. XFCE group, that installs everything. We don't need the XFCE goodies. I think we can just keep it minimal. All right, so that installation is complete. Let's begin installing the, we also need 𝐻𝑗. Let's install 𝐻𝑗 here. Display 𝐻𝑗, because yeah, we'll have to set up 𝐻𝑗. But I think with LightDM we don't have to start we don't need to start XFCE through the xinit.rc file. So what we'll do is we'll just say sudo pacman s, and we'll say 𝐻𝑗. We then need to install the LightDM, what is it called? LightDM GTK greeter, GTK greeter, XFCE4, and we'll just install these packages. So yes, this is gonna take a while. It's about 125 megabytes. Do bear with me, my internet connection isn't the best in the world. If you have a faster mirror or fast internet connection, then again you can install it much quicker. So I'll let this complete and I'll get back to you when it's done. All right, as you can see, it's just begun the installation process. So we're just going to wait for this to complete, and then we have to enable the LightDM service, which is very, very important. That will essentially start the LightDM display manager for us, or the Light display manager as it's called. Now you can use any other display manager you want. If I can just go into the display managers right over here. So for your graphical display managers, you can use LightDM, also LXDE. If you're using KDE as your desktop environment, you can use the SDDM right over here, which works very good with Plasma and LXQT, as you can see, as specified right over here. So Now that we have that installed, we need to enable LightDM. So to do this, we use the sudo system ctl enable, and we say LightDM, and we want to make sure that that is entered. There we are. All right, so that is done now. So we've pretty much enabled that, and we have our desktop environment set up. What we want to do now is we want to reboot into our system, and that'll take us directly into XFCE. Remember, we don't have anything installed, any additional packages. We only have whatever XFCE came with. So if you want to install any other packages, you can do them. You can do it right now, or you can wait after. So what we want to do is we want to reboot, and we just want to specify the boot device. I'm just going to hit enter. I'm just going to specify Arch Linux with grub, and we've rebooted the system now. And there we are. As you can see, XFCE, we're greeted by the light, what is it called? The LightDM GTK greeter. And you can see it gives us our host name, Arch Linux. Our desktop environment is XFCE, so we're all good there. So I'm just going to enter my password for Alexis, and that should take us into the XFCE desktop environment, the latest version. And there you go. So we've pretty much installed XFCE 4 on Arch Linux, and we've completed the setup. So this is like running the most minimal setup I bet you've ever seen, apart from XFCE, which has added some overhead. So if I can just display here, you can see now we're up to 196 megabytes, which isn't too bad. So let's start installing the packages we require. By the way, I installed the what's it called, the VirtualBox guest utilities, but for some reason it isn't rescaling. So what I'll do is I'll just leave it like so. So sudo pacman, and let's synchronize. Let's ensure we have everything, we have the latest of everything here, so that we install Firefox and we can begin setting up BlackArch. So by default, we have our terminal, which is your default XFCE terminal right over here. You also have Thunar, I believe. Let's just check. Help about, yeah, Thunar is your file manager, and it's super snappy. It's unbelievable. So we'll go back into our terminal here, and let's install, we want Firefox. Let's install htop as well, and I'll just, yeah, we want to install it all. So I'll let this download and install. Hopefully it doesn't take too much time. In the meantime, let me just walk you through a few other options here within the general recommendations. So this page is extremely useful if you're after the installation process in regards to managing and maintaining your Arch installation. There's like a ton of useful information within the Arch wiki. I'm sure you already know about that, but you can take a look at the package management system, which again is, as you can see, it uses Pacman. You can learn more about the Arch user repository, or the AUR. That's one of the advantages of running Arch, actually, is the AUR. You pretty much have like any or all Linux packages you could ever want in the AUR. So when you're running Arch, you don't have to worry about compilation or anything like that, or compiling or building your own programs or scripts, from source. The AUR already has it, and it'll automatically do it for you. So it really doesn't matter what program you're working with or what program you want. The AUR is fantastic. As I said, if you want me to make videos on Arch Linux, let me know. So I'll just wait for this to complete so I don't waste any of your time, and I'll get back to you when this is done. All right, installation is winding up here, and we can finally begin setting up the BlackArch repositories, which is very, very simple and straightforward. So what we want to do now is let's open up our web browser here, where I actually have to specify Firefox, but it opens it up for us. It opens it up there. All right, so let's go to blackarch.org. So we can actually just Google, just say BlackArch, and we want to go to the BlackArch repositories here. For some weird reason, let's see if I can actually just increase the size here, because I know I'll not be able to actually do this. Settings manager, where is the display? Haven't worked with this XFCE for a while now, so let me just scale this up so you guys can actually see this a whole lot better. So there we are. Let's just resize this and hit close. All right, excellent. So we want to go to blackarch.org. I'm going to go into downloads, and within downloads, we're just going to let that load up here. We want to go to the install on top of Arch Linux section, where we can we need to just download this script right over here, the strap script. We can then give it executable permissions, and then we execute the script, and then after that we can begin installing the tools that we want. So again, to install all of the tools, we can run the BlackArch, the entire BlackArch category, which will install it for us, or the entire menu of tools. To install a particular category, you can specify it right over here. This is a subcategory. And then to see the BlackArch categories, you can also you use this command right over here. That'll actually grep. So what we want to do is, first of all, we want to actually just get this this script here with curl. So by the way, do I even have curl installed? Let me just install it. So sudo pacman s, I believe, I'm not really sure what comes with the base packages. So yeah, it looks like we had to install it manually. Just go into my desktop here, and I'll get the script. There we are. So we want to give it executable permission. So we're going to say chmod strap.sh, and we then want to execute it. So strap.sh. So sudo, we need root privileges. So strap.sh, and we hit enter. It's going to start installing the BlackArch keyring. We're going to give that a few seconds here. For some weird reason, my entire terminal tiled like that. So by the way, let's actually check out the various wallpapers that we have with XFC. This one is giving me a lot of problems with my eyes, man. It's extremely bright. So we'll just wait for this to install the BlackArch keyring. All right, so it successfully added the BlackArch keyring, or installed it rather, and it's now synchronizing the package databases. So we should be good to pretty much install any or all of the tools within the BlackArch repository. As you can see, there it is, and it tells you BlackArch Linux is ready. So you can pretty much follow the instructions that that they give you right over here in regards to actually searching and installing tools. So again, we can just use this command right over here to actually display all the categories of tools. So BlackArch is an extremely large, it has an extremely large repository or collection of pen testing tools, security tools. It really doesn't matter. You'll not miss any tool here when working with Arch. So I'll give you an example. You can follow those commands, but I typically like installing the tools that I'll be using on a day-to-day basis. So again, I can say sudo pacman s, say nmap, let's see SQL map, let's see what else, comics. We can, oh sorry, comics, and I hit enter, and you can see it found the package comics, which is not available in the AUR, by the way, or I think it is, but in any case, with BlackArch we can install all of these tools without any issues. So we're going to let those install. We're going to let this install the tools that we just specified. I just selected a random group of tools, just showing you that you can install the tools that you want, because if you go and install all the tools within the BlackArch repository, it's a lot. Like it really is a lot of tools that, again, it defeats the purpose of installing Arch, because you want to keep your system resource consumption as minimal as possible. You want to keep the bloatware as low as possible on your system, and you can see how snappy this is. This is like 100 times better than Kali Linux, and you can see I've just set it up. Everything's working really smoothly. XFCE works better than it does on Kali, and again, this is in a VM. Remember, this is I'm sure for those of you who have ran Kali in VMs, you know that how fantastic and how great this looks. So definitely try this out. Let me know what you guys think. I think I'll be using Arch for in my pen testing videos from now on, just to see how it goes. The stability is fantastic. I use Arch, or at least an Arch based distribution, as my host operating system. I'm currently using Manjaro on my main workstation, and I have Arch installed on one of my other personal systems that I use for personal projects. But I'm just going to let this complete. I know my internet connection isn't the best, so we'll just wait for this to complete. Look at the dependencies. TCP dump seems to be the biggest dependency here. So Python and also Scapy for nmap. That should be pretty simple. SQL map is what is being installed right now. Comic should be pretty simple as well. So we'll let this complete. There we are. The installation is complete. Let's see if we can actually find Burp Suite, and let's see if we can run comics first. So there we are. Comics works straight out of the box. So sudo pacman. Let's look for burp. Burp was not found. Burp Suite, that wasn't found. Let's see if we can zap proxy. Well, it wasn't. In any case, let's try and install it. So burp Suite. Yeah, so there is Burp Suite, and install the dependencies for you. So GRE OpenJDK 8 instead of 11, which, as you know, causes a lot of issues. Let's see what other tools we can install. How about WordPress Scan? That's usually a good one. Or wfuzz. Let's install that. Yeah, there we go. We'll just hit enter, and we can install all of these tools. And you can just install the tools that you need instead of having an entire toolkit that you'll never even touch, or specific tools that you'll never even touch. So this is really the advantage of using the BlackArch repositories if you are on an Arch-based distribution or you are running Arch. Let's see if we can find GoBuster. There we are. GoBuster works straight out of the box. You don't have to do anything. BlackArch is fantastic. So, and there you go. So it's fairly simple to set up. Let me know if you guys have any questions. If you had any errors that you're facing, you pretty much will get the same results if you follow the instructions that I gave you here, because this works. I've tried it on multiple machines with VirtualBox. So if you are setting up a VM for pen testing and you want to use Arch Linux in conjunction with the BlackArch repos, you can definitely set this up. Again, leave your feedback in the comment section. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover for this in this video. If you want to support the channel, you can do so on patreon.com/hackersploit, and that's all I wanted to actually say in this video. So I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.